Okay. So looks like we are live right now. Hello, Backstagers. I am Diana Chobota, and I'm very happy today to discuss Amends, the new album by Daze, song by song, with drummer and co-founder of the band, Dowdell. Hi, Shan.
Hi, Diana. How are you doing?
I'm happy to have you today here. I'm happy that the album is out, and super excited for this record because it is so nice. It looks so good. I have it, and thank you for this.
Of course. Thank you. You've been one of the biggest, best supporters from early on. So it's nice to see you holding that album.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to have it in my arms today. I would like to know how was it received. We are 3 days away from 3 days since the album is out in the world. How was it received?
From what I understand, it's being received very well. I mean, we're getting thousands of messages, and everything's been super positive. People telling us that they're crying when they're listening to it. They love it. They're emotionally connected. I think the first day it did really well on Apple Music charts, and I know Spotify has added us to a bunch of different playlists, and same with iHeartRadio. So from what I'm seeing and from what I understand, it's doing very, very well.
And yeah, I saw that it went number one.
I
That
think so. Yeah, we got a text message from the label that it went on the rock, I don't know, number one rock album. I really don't know how those things work so much. I don't pay a lot of attention to it because it just I think you've set yourself up for disappointment when you're hoping for number one or number two or whatever it is. But it's good that it's being received so well for sure. And more important to me is seeing the comments from so many of Chester's fans that just are so emotionally connected to this. And that was really what my hope was. That was my biggest hope. And it's definitely coming true. So it's good to see.
yes, definitely. Sean, how was the process you went through with this whole record? Could you describe it a little
Well,
bit?
that's a long answer. So basically, as you know, we started working on this while Chester was still alive in 2017. So the original idea was we're going to go back in and re-record all these tracks. We were going to do a record to put out towards the end of 2017, so we could do some tours and stuff like that. That was the original intention, and I started working on 3 tracks with a producer named Sylvia Massey in I don't know January of 2017. And I would email Chester tracks, or we would talk on the phone, and I would play him stuff, and he would play stuff that he was writing. So when he did get to come in the studio with us, we would have some new material. So that was really the process originally. And then as we started working through it, we realized that some of the stuff just sounded they're good songs, but some of it just sounded a little bit dated. So we kind of wanted to modernize them a little bit, maybe add some synth or add some programming to kind of just bring them up to date and make them a little bit more relevant in today's music world. And so that Chester's fans could kind of digest it a little bit better. We started doing that while he was alive. Then when Chester passed, the whole Grade A's thing just stopped. It was not even. I remember you called me, I believe that day or the day after, and it just was not even wasn't important. Just dealing with the fallout and the chaotic mess that was left was really my goal at that time. So we just put Grade A's on full stop and dealt with Chester's loss. So then fast forward 6 months or so after Chester passed, and I decided I wanted to finish the record, and I went and I met with Mace and Kristen, and they both were on board, and I kind of told them what I wanted to do. And then I went and met with Talinda, and I told her, and she said, absolutely. I trust you completely. And, you're one of Chester's best friends, and I know you have his best intentions in mind. So I trust you. And that's really how I got started. Then I called Chester's mom and dad and just made sure that they understood my intentions and they were on board. And so we went into the studio. I had some conversations with a guy named Renee Mata, who was a good friend of Chester's and became a really good friend of mine.
Mhm.
and we started working at NRG out in LA.
Yeah.
And
What a
we
beautiful,
basically, what's that?
what a beautiful place. I must say that I've been there when I was in LA, and I really felt Chester's presence over there.
Yeah, I can see that actually. And then, so once we started working at NRG, we stripped down all of the music
Mhm.
and just listened to his vocal tracks over and over and over again. And then we literally isolated the vocal tracks and worked on the arrangement, worked on making sure his vocals were, the pitch was correct and all that stuff, and just cleaned them up and made everything as best as we could. And then we started from the ground up around his vocals and literally wrote the music around his vocals. The only two songs that, we wrote several versions of Sometimes and several versions of What's in the Eye, but everything we did just never seemed to capture that original magic that those two songs had. So we really kept the same vibe on What's in the Eye, and sometimes those songs sound really, really similar to the way they did back in the '90s.
Mhm.
Of course, we did some different stuff in the bridge, and we added some things, but for all intents and purposes, those songs stayed intact. The rest of the songs we put a full creative writing sessions together and wrote with different producers. We had 5 producers in total
Okay.
that sat with us and wrote. Literally, we worked on one song at a time with each of the producers, and that way we could work on multiples to try to be a little bit more efficient. And we literally worked these songs from the ground up to try to reinvent them, so to speak. And that was really the process of the overview of the process, anyways.
Mhm. Okay. Um, could you tell me which were the songs that you went back and forth with Chester on the very beginning of?
So originally, believe it or not, was Drag was one of them.
Mhm.
In Time was one of them, and I believe Soul Song was one of them. I don't, maybe Whole. Maybe I have one of those mixed up. There's a lot of music going back and forth. So I believe it was Whole, Drag, and maybe Soul Song. Maybe
Mhm.
those three.
Yeah. Because I remember you started working on Hope and In Time. That's what I
Yeah,
heard.
you got to hear. Yeah, so you got to hear some of the stuff um, relatively early. So yeah, but and that's really how we did it.
Yeah, good. So I suggest that we take every track and discuss a little bit about them.
Okay.
Let's start with the first one, Sickness.
Okay, so Sickness, Chester wrote the lyrics pretty much by himself on this one. And, you know, we've done a bunch of interviews about the different songs. And that one in particular, I remember him, his intention was, writing about a feeling of emptiness, a feeling of loneliness, a feeling of malcontent, a feeling of not understanding your purpose, a feeling of wanting more out of life. And I remember him hearing that. I remember him saying that several times. So that's the narrative of the song. However, when I look these lyrics now, it really feels like a song about addiction,
Hmm.
um, and that's never been discussed with him while he was alive. So I can't verify.
Yeah,
I don't even know that he would know if that was about addiction when he wrote it, because the way we wrote, he kind of wrote whatever he was feeling, and maybe his intention was one thing, but the word said something different, kind of like a great poet. You know what I mean?
yeah,
You can read Edgar Allan Poe and realize that his intention was one thing, but then there's this underlying subconscious coming through his lyrics. And I think Chester was very similar in that way, especially on this song. This song really, the more I analyze the lyrics, it really feels like something different than what I remember him saying the song was about. So, but I'll go with his original interpretation. It's a song about loneliness and feeling empty and being a malcontent. We had a guest guitar player, Paige Hamilton from the band Helmet, play on this track with Kristen,
hmm
and this was one of my favorite rocker songs on the record. It's got that really heavy groove and just
yeah.
great bass line, and
Haunted,
I love the song. It's a lot of fun to play.
definitely. And the video, I saw some little details in it. There's a poster of a photo with using a photo of back in the day with you on that guy's bedroom.
That's right. That's right. You didn't miss a thing. So, the video doesn't necessarily speak to the lyrics. We kind of we kind of took a storyboard of some events that happened in Chester's life and just kind of made a scene about some of those events that happened, and kind of made a video around it. The video doesn't necessarily follow the lyrics in that one, but I like it. I think it turned out well.
Okay. Sometimes the second one.
So sometimes I think, in my opinion, stays the truest to the original track. We had guest guitar player Chris Trainer from Bush on this track. Lyrically, this is a song that Chester wrote. The lyrics about, one of the things I love about this song is it's one of the few grade A songs that speaks about hope
Mhm.
and kind of gives you like, hey man, things might not be so great, but
They might.
it's gonna be okay. And I love that message. To me, um, that's a special thing about that song. And I think the chorus is incredible. I love the way he sings on that song. I mean, it's just a beautiful song.
Yeah. And for myself, I really found relief and hope in it for so many times because throughout the years, I had people disappointing me and stuff like that. And I knew that someday things will get better. And they
Absolutely.
every time. What's in the eye? Uh,
So, like I said before, What's in the Eye kind of stayed really similar to its original intent.
mhm.
Again, we had Chris Trainer play guitar on that with Kristen, and Marcos Curiel from POD as well.
Yeah.
Two great guys that did a great job on that song. And I really love the way the bridge turned out on there. Just kind of all the music dropping out. It's just the drums and Chester. I think it's a really cool part. It's always been a fan favorite. It's not one of my favorite songs. I like it. I like it a lot, actually. It's not one, when I have to start listing out my favorite songs, it always tends to come in near the bottom. I don't know why that is, because I think it's a great song, but it's a fan favorite for some reason.
I
And
want.
that's a song that lyrically Chester and I wrote together. I wrote the original version of the lyrics, and I remember bringing it into rehearsal. And we worked this way sometimes. We would go just give the lyric sheet back and forth. We'd cross words out. And then he was trying to find melodies. He'd be lacing through different words. So we'd take some words out and put,
Mhm.
elongate different contextual things. And I remember he just took a big red pen and crossed out the chorus that I had written.
Okay.
And I still have that lyric sheet, which is kind of funny, of the original lyrics. And then Chester started singing "Don't Go Too Fast, My Friend, or You'll Lose Control." And he took the intention of that song, which was kind of a philosophical approach for me, and then he made that about loss of a friend too early and not understanding, trying to questioning why does this happen? Why do good things or bad things happen to good people? And somebody that he loved, and I don't remember his friend who passed away in a car accident. I could find that out, but I remember that was the intention of the song once he got a hold of the lyrics.
Mhm. And speaking about prophetic lyrics that he was able to write at a very young age, in the booklet, there's the lyrics of one song that I never knew about, God's Afraid.
Yeah. So
Could you
God's
let us
Afraid
know?
was written by myself and Chester in our first band, SD and his friends. So that band lasted about 8 months. We did a 3-song demo, and that track is on there. But in the early versions of Great A's, we played that song as well, and we never re-recorded it as Great A, or maybe we did on a demo. But basically, that was one of the first songs he and I wrote lyrically together.
I remember I read in your book at some point that one of the recording sessions for Grey Days was at the State University of Arizona or something like that in a university campus.
No, we never recorded ASU. I used to go to Arizona State, and Chester would with me to my classes,
Hmm.
and so we had band practice. He lived with me for quite a while, and so that maybe that's what you're referring to in my book. But we also recorded the conservatory of recording arts. So maybe you're kind of
That's
crossing wires a little bit. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the syndrome.
Okay. So the Syndrome was one of my favorite songs back in the day. That was written mostly by Chester. I wrote a little bit of that one as well, but mostly by Chester. And I think it was originally called the Down Syndrome, and the reason we changed the name because I just think in this political climate, it might come off wrong, people thinking that we're singing about a mental illness or something, and that's not at all what the song is about. The Down syndrome was referring to depression, and so we just took the word down off of it and called it the syndrome, so we could avoid any any pushback on the name, and that's really where that came from. And really, once again, this is a song that kind of deals with sadness and depression and people letting you down, and then realizing that it's in yourself, that you have to kind of pull yourself out of that. And we got to have my son Karsten guest on the drums on this song, and that was really cool to do. And when we wrote this one, this was one of the first songs that we worked on with producer SJ and Lucas, where we really changed up the original drum pattern. And when we were writing it, we added some different programming around the drums, and it's kind of give you that ethereal feel in the verses. And I love it. And one of my favorite lines that Chester sings in this is just has such a deeper meaning now when he says, "Are you happy?" It's like, wow, man, that really hits home now.
Exactly. That's something I confess I've always wanted to ask him when I met him and I saw him that he was maybe a little bit tired, but I was like, I think I'm gonna invade this personal space, and I'd better not ask that. But yeah, that's one of my regrets.
Well, the problem is if you would have asked him, he probably would have hit it very well
Yeah.
and just said, "Oh no, I'm fine." He was very good at hiding his pain.
Yes. Yes. Okay. In time.
In Time is a song that I wrote lyrically, and then Chester got a hold of it and made it 1,000 times better. I remember sitting with him in the rehearsal studio, and this one specific part in the song where I wrote the word pain, so much pain. And of course, I'm not a great singer, so I'm kind of mouthing him the melody of pain and just kind of going this real soft. And he gets on the microphone and he screams pain like he meant it. And from that moment on, that line in that song has been my favorite line in that track. Um, it's just amazing. And then on this one, we had our mutual friend Ryan Shuck. Of course, Ryan. He played in Dead by Sunrise, and Julian K in Orgy, and of course Bucket of Weenies. And he was a good friend of myself and Chester. And we brought him in, and he plays guitars on this track with us, with Kristen as well. And this is one of my favorite, most emotional songs on the album. I think it's just beautiful. I think it gives you an introspective into a different side of Chester than a lot of his fans have seen before, and it gives you a softer, more beautiful insight.
Exactly. And there are some lyrics that I always find here. I know, and everything told must come true. That's so strong. Such a
Thank you.
just like heroin.
So, just like Heroin, we wrote this one together. Chester and I did, and originally it was called A Little Down, and then we changed the name to Just Like Heroin. And we wrote this song about all of our idols that kept dying back in the 90s from using heroin. Guys like
Kurt Cobain.
Shannon Hoon and, from Blind Melon, and, Kurt Cobain from Nirvana, and Lane Staley from Alice in Chains. And it just, the list kept going and going. And we got so tired of seeing it happen. It's really what we wrote the song about. It's what he's saying when he says the line, just excuses. It's like, find a reason to not use drug as your excuse, whether it be your kids or your wife or your family or your parents or your brother or your sister. So find a reason. And, it was not a pro drug song. I've seen some comments are like, why are you guys talking about drugs? Like, we're not talking about drugs in a good way. This is an anti-drug song. Listen to the lyrics.
Exactly.
So that's really what it's about. I also think this song, was one of the hardest to reinvent, this one in B12, because the original feel of this track was so slow. It was almost done in like halftime.
Yeah.
And then it feels like we sped it up, but we really didn't. I think it's just a couple beats faster, but we wrote completely different attitude around the song. And I think this song really kind of really re-encapsulates that 90s vibe to me. But it's just got that heavy hitting chorus. And then, there's been a lot of questions online about in the bridge there's scream. That is Chester screaming, but SJ is a producer. She also screams on there too. There's like 5 vocal tracks. Chester's singing and screaming on all of them. She does scream on there with him, but it's not just SJ. It is Chester,
Mhm.
and there's no confusion. I saw some go, "You're trying to hide the fact that this is something." It's like, what are you talking about? No, of course not trying to hide. This is just how it is. So yeah, so SJ screams on there with him, but it is Chester screaming. It's Chester singing on the whole track.
Yeah. I really like this. I remember there was a rain at some point in 2017, very, very strong, where I was working back in the day. And I used to listen to this track and watch the rain. And it felt like healing. And at the same time, I don't know, very cutting deep.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah. Um, B12. But we just,
So this, I think, is the hardest track to reinvent. Oh, I'm sorry. Go back to Just Like Heroin. We had a guest guitar player Chris Trainer from Bush on that track as well,
yeah.
with Kristen. And then so B12, we had guest guitar players Head and Monkey from the band Korn. They came in with producer Alex Aldi, and this song was tough to rewrite because it had such a funk root to it with that original bass line, and trying to reinvent it and make it a little bit more edgy, a little bit more hard rock, but bringing Head and Monkey into the mix with us to write with us. They really brought some beautiful guitar work in this song, and I think it turned out awesome. I love this track. We had my son Brennan guest drum on this one as well. So each of my sons got to play drums on one song, and this was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun making the video, and this used to be a big fan favorite. I think this is the one of the songs that has that kind of anthem feel. You can kind of see like NBA teams coming out during a halftime or something, and hooray, hoorah! Just get that whole crowd pumping with that mantra that Chester's screaming. I love that track. It's turned out so well.
Definitely. And the video, it's the first one where we see actually the band playing live nowadays. You have,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that was we were trying to wrap our head around how to do it because obviously we're missing Chester, and that was a concept that Kristen and I came up with, and I think we did a good job. It was difficult to come up with something that was good, that was unique, and to be able to pull it off without the singer being there physically to do it. So,
yeah.
but I think we did. I think we did everything very respectfully, and it came across really nice.
And speaking about Monkey and Head and Cord, I remember back in 2004, something like that, there was a movie coming out, Queen of the Damned, and Chester Head was on one of the tracks, System,
Yep.
and it got that haunting vibe as well.
Yeah, I've heard a few people say that actually. I don't know that track very well, so I have to go back and listen to it.
I'm
But
gonna send the link to you exactly right after we finish this because
oh,
it's
okay. And what is
but
it called again?
System.
System. Okay, I'll go back and listen to that.
Hmm. Okay. And tell me a little bit about your boys. How did they pick on drums? Because of the father's passion, or how?
About my boys, well, Brennan started when he was like in 8th grade, and he just kind of started learning how to play, and I taught him a few things early on, but then he really went into marching band and got into the really heavy technical aspects of drumming, and he eventually became a world class percussionist. And I mean, he placed. I think his the group that he was in. I think he placed ninth at the DCI World Drum Championships. I mean, he's really really good. He's better than I am for sure. And then Karsten picked it up a few years back, and he's gotten really good too. So it's kind of fun to talk drum shop with my kids and get their input, and they'll be like, Dad, you should do like this, or you know. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, would be nice to see you, the three of you, drumming on one some
Yeah,
point.
maybe someday.
Yeah. Well, speaking about kids inheriting the talent of their parents and the passion for music, this leads up to the next track, Soul Song, and Jamie being on it, Chester's eldest son. Tell us a little bit more about this.
So we have Chris Trainer from Bush playing guitar on this one with Kristen as well. Uh, we have Jamie Chester's son singing backup vocals, and it was one of our maybe our second or third trip to NRG. We were working on a different song, but I was standing in the control room and something just hit me like a lightning bolt. Like, hey, Chester never got to record with his kids. We should invite them in to sing with him, and that way they can sing with their dad. That's something we can give back to Chester. Like, he never got to do that, and that felt really special. Like, this is something we can give to him. I mean, how often can you give somebody who's passed on a gift? And that's really how we felt about it. So I called to Linda and asked her if she wanted Lily, Lila, or Tyler to sing on the record, and she just felt like they were too young. And I was okay. I totally respected that, and I actually think I kind of agree. But I wanted to make sure she knew that we were offering that as an option. And then we called Draven as well, and initially he was excited about it, and then I think he just got a little nervous or apprehensive for some reason, and I just don't think he was comfortable, and that was fine. No pressure from us. This was more like, if you want to do this, cool. And then, we asked Jamie, and as soon as Jamie listened to what we had to say, he was, when do you want me down there? He understood, I think, early on that this wasn't something that was going to come back around. This was kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to sing with his father. And so we had him come in, and we gave him two choices, either the Syndrome or SoulSong. And I'm glad he chose SoulSong. I think um,
Perfect.
spiritually, there's a little bit more of a connection there, and he does a really good job singing on the choruses, singing background vocals on the chorus. There's a lot of confusion out there, and I don't know why. We've been pretty straightforward with how we're doing this, why we're doing this, and fans are like, oh, this is great. He almost sounds like Chester. It's like, no, that is Chester. He's singing backing vocals on this. Yes, he sounds good, but that is Chester you're hearing. So, and you you can only explain it so many times. If people just don't want to read or listen, I don't know what to say. But so he did a really good job, and then I think his dad would have been very proud of him. And then when the label said, "Hey, we need to come up with a video concept for this album," Jamie had asked me early on, if you guys have an opportunity for me to direct a video, I'd like to do that. So I called him up. I said, all right, dude, you're gonna have to put up or shut up. And he just kind of laughed. And I told him, I said that they want a video done. Do you think you can handle it? And he got really nervous. And then he said, you know what, I can do it. So I put him in touch with the label. I think I had one or two phone calls with those guys, just talking about treatments and logistics. And then he went off and did it. We weren't even there for the video. We just let him do his thing and kind of take control of it. So I think he did a good job.
A very good job. And I don't mean to take this in a personal area of myself, but I'm very honored to have had the chance to shoot the video in Sedona as well for my debut single.
Yeah, I mean, all that was his idea. And I think he wore one of his dad's shirts or something in there, and I didn't even know that until somebody had pointed it out. I just didn't even think of it, and I think it was a way for him to get some closure, or at least connection. Connection's a better word. I think it was a way for him to get a connection with his dad in a way that he had maybe had before.
Mhm. Cool. MoreiSky, the track giving the album of the title of the album.
So Kristen came up with the album title Amends, and that is from a lyric of MoreiSky, like you said. Chester and I wrote these lyrics when we were in Puerto Penasco, Mexico. We call it Rocky Point here in Arizona. It's about 4 hours from our house to the beach down there, and we used to go down there and vacation together all the time. And on one of the trips, in the early 90s. We were just sitting there watching the sunset, drinking our beers, and we wrote out the lyrics for MoreiSky, and then we brought it back to rehearsal maybe a week later, and then wrote the actual music and melody to it. But that was a moment that I'll always remember, sitting on the back of my friend Henry's truck, writing those lyrics out with him, back and forth, and we're each, hey, what about this? And that was just a really cool time. I also think that this song lyrically is one of the most prophetic and deeply emotional songs. I think when he sings, "If I had a second chance, I'd make amends," I really believe that it's him singing to us from beyond and apologizing from beyond. I just think it's a really meaningful lyric on this album.
Indeed. And I also like that verse. It came up from the deepest sea. God gave it life and reason to be. That's
Thank you. And contextually, when we were writing that lyric, I mean, we were talking about the sun because we were staring at the ocean and it was setting against the water. So that's really how what that lyric was, metaphoric, but you
Mhm.
can take it and now apply it. And that's one of the cool things about the way the lyrics are on this record is you can really there's they have this universality to them to where you can apply them to situational circumstance in your life, and they can take on a different contextually they can take on a different meaning for the listener, which I think is really special.
Yes, definitely, Sean. And I always like to think of you guys being teenagers, writing these songs, imagining those moments. And I also like to think of how you put all your trust and all your passion into this project, wishing that someday it will, I don't know, go to be recognized worldwide. And now this happening, I really believe that for the younger Chester, it's like a wish coming true, and for the older Chester as well, because that's one of his like latest projects, last project, I believe.
Well, I mean, that's a good point because a lot of people don't realize this was the last thing he was working on while he was alive. This wasn't like some demo sitting in a garage that we decided to just put out there. And I've seen a couple of really negative comments, and they're always so little. There's tens of thousands of positive comments, hundreds of thousands of positive comments, and there'll be one or two jerks out there that's like, "Oh, you're just trying to make money." It's like, if you even knew how much of my own money I put into this thing, how much of my time I've put into this thing, you wouldn't even say that. And it frustrates me just from an understanding point. Like, you guys don't even understand. First of all, they don't understand our relationship that Chester and I had. They don't understand how important Grey Daze was to Chester. We tried to put Grey Daze back together 3 different times. This wasn't just off on a whim. Like, he really loved the band. He really loved playing with me. We played in several side projects together. There's so much history that is deeply rooted in fact. And then there's some of these kids out there. There's this kid that runs, one of those Lincoln Park live forums. The guy's delusional and he's trying to rewrite history about stuff, and it bums me out when I see that. I don't know this guy. He certainly doesn't know Chester. He certainly doesn't know me, but he just, runs his mouth about all this negative stuff. And it's just such a waste of time and energy. I don't understand it. But if he just did a little bit of research on who people are in the roles that they're doing, why this project was done, I think he would just shut his mouth. But apparently, he's too important in his own world on a fan page to want to pay attention to actually what happened.
Yeah, no, I won't comment on that because I don't waste my time reading negative stuff, and that's a good approach. But one thing that I always say to fans and to artists alike is that you don't have to question the creativity of an artist. You don't have to question their feelings about something. They've been there, they wrote that, they lived that. If they want to put that out, just let it be. If you like it, listen to it. If you don't like it, move on.
Well, that's where I'm at with it. I mean, the overwhelming positivity we're getting out of this is great, and I can't waste a lot of time on the negative stuff. But um, if you like the music, awesome. If you don't, that's fine too.
Exactly.
You're not going to make or break my day by telling me you don't like something we did. Like, I do so many things in life. This is one of them, and I'm proud of the music that we created. And hopefully you love it. And if you don't, that's fine.
Yeah, and what I like to imagine if Chester would have still been here and done things exactly the way they have been done, would they still have this commentary to do on it? No.
You never know, but I mean, one of the things that I can say, and one of the things maybe that makes it easier for me to deal with some of that negativity is that there were a lot of negative people when he did the One More Light album.
Oh
And I
yeah.
remember having several conversations with him. He was really bummed out and he took that stuff really personally. So, yeah, I do think there would be people saying bad stuff if he were alive and still doing this project because he just dealt with it. I know for a fact he dealt with it on that last album. And I think it was one of the contributing factors to him doing what he did. He had a lot of people talking a lot of shit to him for no reason, because they didn't like what he did. So be it. And I would tell him, don't let that stuff get you down. So I have to take my own advice on that. Don't let it get me down. But I'm proud of what we did. I think the songs are beautiful. I think every single track on this record is good to great. And I think we created a masterpiece of an album. That's my opinion, and no one's going to change my mind on that.
Absolutely sure. Okay. We were talking about MoreiSky. Now she shines.
She Shines is Mace's favorite song. He'll be very happy that I said that. We have guest guitar player Jason Rauch from Breaking Benjamin and Head from Korn playing on this track with Kristen, produced by SJ and Lucas. This is probably the heaviest track on the album. Um, it's got a really heavy groove behind it, real simple, but really heavy groove behind everything. And I remember Chester wrote this song when we went on a camping trip and he had found out that his girlfriend had been cheating on him with his friend, and it really bummed him out. And I remember, so the lyrics like are very literal. Like we were down by the river when you told me, you were having an affair with this guy. You told me you loved me. You told him you loved him. Like those lyrics are literally the events that transpired.
Mm-hmm. And
And this was not one of my old favorite tracks, but I love what we did to it. I love the new version of it, and it just punches heavy. I love it.
I must tell you a little story from when I discovered this track. I think I was 13 when I discovered Grey Daze then. And one friend of mine had the cassette, and we would play it. I believe it was Wake Me. And we were asking to ourselves because we were very beginners with English back in the day. What's this so eager meaning? Because he's repeating it so much, so eager, so eager. So we searched in the old school dictionaries and learned this word from back in the day. So from the song. And right now, when I hear eager or we use eager, I always think of this track because that's why I learned the word.
Yeah, I mean that is the lyric of the song, right? It's like it's everywhere in that song. He probably says it 40 times, and I think that is a very passionate song, and that is one of the songs you get an insight to what was going to become the Chester and Lincoln Park. And that last scream that you hear on that track is so raw and so gutturally powerful. That I love that song. It's a lot of fun to play and listen to.
Mhm. And I still got that cassette, by the way, Shan.
Awesome, that's great.
Okay. And Shouting Out, the last one, featuring LP.
So "Shouting It Out," I think, is the only pop song we actually have on the record. If I had to give you a genre, I think that one song kind of stands out a little bit as more of a pop song than a rock song. But we feature a duet with the singer LP on there, and she does an amazing job with Chester. I just think it's a beautiful song. Cass Dillon was the producer on this track, and it's just a beautiful song. It's one of those songs, though, too, that when you get into the lyrics, you start realizing, he's talking about he felt like he disappointed somebody, he felt like he let somebody down, and that's unfortunately when we talk about Chester, that is the tragedy in Chester's life is he never felt like he was good enough. He never felt like he was important enough or smart enough. And we had many of these conversations where he would share that with me, and I would tell him, dude, that's not how it is. We love you. We care about you. We think you're smart. We think you're cool. We think you're great. And not as a singer. That was me talking to him as a friend, but he just never felt that way about himself. And he had millions of people who thought he was just incredible, but he didn't feel that way about himself. And that is the tragedy in all of this.
Yeah.
But I think that song is absolutely beautiful. And there's a really cool voicemail that, we have hundreds of voicemails from, well, maybe not hundreds, but lots of voicemails from Chester. And when we were in the studio, Renee, the guy I mentioned earlier, Renee played that on his phone. He's like, this is a voicemail he left me. I want to say maybe it was June of 2016, something like that. And Renee was one of those guys. He keeps everything. He's got like 9 million hours of film and photographs. He's just. I wish I was that guy because I think back to all this stuff that we did together, and I don't have photos of 90% of the cool stuff we did together. And but Renee does, and so that's kind of cool. And he played that for, and the producer's like, we should put that at the end of the track. And once he laid it in there and just kind of sent it to me, I was like, this has to be the last track on the record, no matter what, because if it comes any sooner, it's not going to sound right in the listener's mind to get that voicemail and then go on to the next one. It's just not. So I just thought it was a very special, touching voicemail, and we left it on there.
And especially because he says that I wish you a bright day or something like that, and good day, and I love you at the very end. It's like a
Yeah.
message for everyone who received this album with arms wide open and enjoys it.
That's exactly right. That was really the intention behind it. We wanted to help give some of these listeners some closure. We wanted to help give some of the listeners an emotional connection to somebody they may not have had it with for a while now, since he's been gone. And that was really one of the intentions behind this whole thing. And I think we did our job.
Yes, very well, Sean. And I remember when you started out with the Great Days presence online on the social media. Chester followed the accounts, and I remember a photo of you and Mace was posted, and he liked that. It was your first photo after so many years coming back together,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I
he,
mean, a lot of people don't know that, but Chester made me get back with Mace and to put the band back together because we were talking on the phone. I'm like, well, what are we going to do with for a bass player? Because Mace and I hadn't talked in years. He goes, well, you're going to have to figure that out and just kind of put it like, hey, you go make things right with Mace, because Mace and I we got in a big argument, um, a few years prior, and I wasn't feeling healthy about that relationship. So Chester's like, well, go see if you guys can play nice, and if not, we'll figure it out. But basically, he was letting me know like you need to go and make amends with Mace. So I did, you know, and
yes,
it was good. And then yeah, I mean, you see if you look on some of the if you look on some of the stuff that Chester was posting towards the end there, he was clearly excited about the band reuniting and working on new material. So it's important that people understand this was one of the last things that he was working on, and it was very important to him for this music to come out. And hopefully you can understand why once you hear the music, because the music is really good.
indeed, Sean. That's right. Back in the day, do you what was the your favorite songs to play live?
My favorite song to play live was Saturation. It was usually our set ender. As the band started to get really good, we started playing in front of sold out crowds. 97, 98, we owned the Phoenix market. We were playing in front of thousands of people every time, going out to LA, headlining the Whiskey, playing, doing what big bands do, or bands that are on the rise do. And we would always end our set with that one. And that was just one of the most heavy songs to play live, and I got to be very animated behind the drum kit when I played it, and I just really loved playing that song live. That one, or I think back in the day, the Down Syndrome was a lot of fun to play live too.
Hmm. And for Chester, did he have a specific one that?
You know, I'm guessing at this because I don't know for sure, but I know he really loved Sometimes. I know that song was very special to him, and we had written a song called Ryan's Wisdom that we never got a chance to record on a record. I know we recorded some demos for it. That I think was his favorite, and I think that's one of my favorite choruses we ever wrote. If you ever go back and listen to that chorus in one of those live shows, the audios are always so bad on those live shows, but He says, "I am here now, um, forever. I can't die. I am here now, forever. I am damned now, forever. I can't die now, forever." And that to me still gives me goosebumps as I'm sitting here talking about it. It's a really prophetic lyric, and I think it was one of the most beautiful choruses we ever wrote together. And that was done. I want to say maybe the last year the band was around, um, in '98 before we broke up. But um, yeah, there you go.
Guys, and how I wanted to ask you, Sean, about Mace. How is he now? Because I think many people are wondering about him
So
after.
he got into a motorcycle accident about a month ago now, and he's on the road to recovery. He's out of the hospital. I think he's starting to be able to walk with the aid of crutches at this point, but he's pretty messed up. I mean, he got a bad car accident. Um, he shattered his collarbone. He shattered his femur. He he
I remember.
collapsed the lung. He broke 9 ribs. I mean, he got really hurt. But he's on the road to recovery, and he's got the same stupid sense of humor. So we're still giving each other shit on the phone and talking quite a bit. But he's doing good, and he wanted everyone to know that he's doing okay, and he's going to be okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sending him all my good vibes and love because he's a great human being. Just
Yeah,
like
yes.
I really was honored to meet you, the both of you guys, and get to know how you are in real life. And it was really fun.
Awesome. Well, it was good to meet you too. I appreciate you having me on today. I do have to go,
Yes,
but did you have any more questions? Or are we good?
it was just.
Awesome. Well, have a great day, Diana. Thank you for having me on, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Sean. All the
Take
best.
care. All
Greetings.
right. Bye bye.